The King Kone pre-roll filling machine is one of the fastest and most versatile ways to fill pre-rolls that we've discovered, and the new King Kone closer addresses the machine's top pain point, manually closing each pre-roll, speeding up your production process and saving you money. Welcome back to the Custom Cones USA channel, home of the pre-roll experts and your one-stop shop for everything pre-roll. Today, we're looking at the new King Kone closer machine, able to give an entire tray of 169 pre-rolls a Dutch crown style finish or folded top in just a few simple steps. It's a simple and easy way to address what we hear from producers is the most time-consuming part of the pre-roll production process, closing the cones after they've been packed. In fact, when we ran our battle of the pre-roll filling machines, it was the lack of a closing tool and the need to hand twist every pre-roll that landed the King Kone in second place. But thankfully, that is no longer an issue. First, let's look at the closing machine itself. When you order, you'll get the King Kone Dutch Crown closer machine and the double-sided pin assembly, which has long, clear acrylic pins on one side and star-shaped pins on the other, as well as the closing tray and a single size-specific cone holding tray. Holding trays are available in all sizes, from 70mm mini dog walkers to half-gram 84mm 1 1/4 size to our special 98mm size that will hold about 3/4 of a gram and king-size 109mm full-gram cones. However, and this is important, if you choose the 109mm full gram size, you will need to purchase a special new 109mm filling tray for your King Kone machine. The new trays are designed to allow the pin assembly to push the filled cones out through the bottom and into the holding tray. Generally, when filling 109mm cones with the King Kone machine, you have to stack both the 84mm tray and the 98mm tray on top of each other to create the space to fill a king-size cone. However, that system will not work with the Dutch Crown closer because the filled cones can't be pushed through to the closer ring. So there's a new filling tray specially designed for 109mm cones that you must add to your bundle if you plan to use the Dutch Crown closer on that size cone. So just keep that in mind. Okay. So now let's get into how to use this machine to speed up the back end of pre-roll production process. Though it takes a little practice, the King Kone Dutch Crown closer quickly becomes a fast and simple way to speed up your post-filling process. There's no trick to it. It's just about memorizing the steps and making sure your positioning is correct before pulling the lever. But let's start with a few quick safety notes that we've discovered from using this a bit. First, I want to note the holes through the base of this machine. These are designed so that you can firmly attach your King Kone Dutch Crown closer to your workbench. It's not necessary for use, but we recommend it if you have a permanent location plan for the machine with the ability to mount the surface. This will prevent the unit from ever shifting or slipping during use. We have found that while the closer is well balanced for taller people who can more easily put downward force on the handle, some of our shorter pre-roll experts ended up pushing down the handle at an angle and force that could cause the machine to tilt forward and or slip on the work surface, potentially falling. Speaking of the handle, be sure that when you return it to its top position, it's all the way back and fully in position. If it is not, the handle may fall forward and can clip you or your employee in the head. So think of this like an airline tray table. When not in use, you want to make sure it's in the full upright and locked position. Finally, the transfer ring slides up and down here, so be careful of your hands as it can slip and pinch your fingers or hands as it falls, which can be painful. Okay. Now let's get to how it works. Let's start after you've finished filling your pre-rolls with the King Kone machine. Now this is critical. Make sure your fill is even and leaves between 3 to 5mm of paper unfilled that can be folded over. If you don't leave enough paper for the machine to fold over, it isn't going to work. And remember that different flour will have different particle size and density, even if ground the same way. So there are times when it will make sense to use a 98mm cone for 1 gram pre-rolls, or perhaps a 98 for a half gram pre-roll if you're having trouble leaving the extra 3 to 5mm of paper for folding. Also, let's note again that if you're making 109mm 1 gram pre-rolls, you're going to need to buy a special filling tray if you plan to use the closer. Once your cones are filled, lift the work tray so the cones protrude from the bottom and then place the tray in the transfer ring of the Dutch Crown closer. Next, slide the pin assembly tray into position with the clear acrylic pins facing down. If you need to, adjust the pin alignment tray, this built-in thin black ring that can help keep the acrylic pins straight and properly lined up. Now, give the lever a pull. That should push your packed cones into the closing tray. This is called the transfer process. But again, be careful when using the handle, especially when returning the handle to its raised position. Make sure it's all the way back to prevent it from falling. With your handle in the full upright position, remove the pin assembly and the empty packing tray. Your pre-rolls should now be in the supporting or closing tray. Again, this is a good chance to check your pre-rolls to make sure you have the right amount of paper left so it can be folded over. Next, slide the cone folding tray into its position on the transfer ring and push it down. hard onto your cones so it gathers the paper into the middle of its star shape and can be folded by the machine. You want to hear the paper crunch here because that means the tops of your cones are in the right position and ready to be folded over. Now we're going to put the pin assembly back in, but this time flip it over so the star pins face down. Once you've slid the pin assembly back into position, pull down on the lever again. This will fold your paper over. You may want to do this a few times just to ensure that all of the paper gets folded and tamped down. It may also take some force, so don't be afraid to give it some oomph. Check that your cones are all folded over, and then return the handle to the top position. Remove the pin assembly, flip it back over so the acrylic side is down, and slide it back into position. Use the pin alignment tray to make sure everything is lined up with your pre-rolls, and then pull the lever one more time to force the filled, folded cones through the bottom of the tray. Now, this may take a little more force than before, and even more force if your cones are overpacked, so don't be afraid to give this a decent crank. And remember, your pin assembly usage order is clear, star, clear. Just keep that in mind. Clear, star, clear. And there you have it. A full King Kone run of filled pre-rolled cones closed with the Dutch crown closer finish in just a few easy steps. I know it seems like a lot, but it gets easier and faster with repetition and practice. Plus, it will not only speed up the back end of your production process, but create pre-rolls that look better, light smoother, and are less likely to canoe or run than a twist top. All right, that's all for today. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell to stay up to date with all the latest pre-roll news. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.